For years, fans of Little People, Big World have watched Amy Roloff find her second chance at love. After a tumultuous and public divorce, she found a partner in Chris Marek. He was the charming, steady, motorcycle-riding real estate agent who swept her off her feet. He was the man who stood by her side, who embraced her family, and who promised her a future of stability and happiness. But what if that future was built on a foundation of lies? What if the man Amy Roloff married, the man we've all come to know, has been hiding a secret so profound, so devastating, that it threatens to shatter not just their marriage, but the entire Roloff family dynamic as we know it? Tonight on LPBW Update, we bring you the story that is about to rock the fandom to its core. A story that begins in the quiet, unassuming plains of Idaho. A story of a hidden past, a family allegedly abandoned, and a secret that has been kept for decades. A viral social media post claiming to be from Chris Marek's long-lost cousin has just gone public. It alleges that long before Chris Marek was a reality TV star, he had another life. A life that included a family he walked away from, and now that family is coming forward. Amy, we are told, is completely blindsided. The fairy tale, it seems, might be a conspiracy thriller in disguise. This is the story of Chris Marek's secret family. Before we unpack this bombshell and reveal the shocking details of this unconfirmed report, details that are so specific and compelling that they demand investigation, we need your help. This is the kind of story that the mainstream outlets won't touch. It's the kind of deep dive that only a dedicated community like ours can bring to light. If you believe in getting to the bottom of this, and if you want to follow every twist and turn of this developing situation, then right now, take 1 second and hit that like button. It tells YouTube that this is a story that needs to be seen. And most importantly, subscribe to LPBW Update and turn on all notifications. We will be releasing updates as soon as our sources provide them, and you will not want to miss a single moment. Okay, are you ready? Let's pull back the curtain. It all started less than 72 hours ago. A post appeared in a private but large Pacific Northwest community group on Facebook. The post was made by a woman we will refer to as Brenda, to protect her privacy as our investigation continues. Our sources who have verified the existence of the post and have sent us screenshots confirm that Brenda claims to be Chris Marek's first cousin from his mother's side. The post was not addressed to the public, but directly to Chris. It was emotional, raw, and accusatory. Here is a direct transcript of the key sections of her post. To my cousin, Christopher Marek, or should I say Chris Marek, the big TV star from Oregon. It's been a long time, almost 30 years. I bet you thought we'd all just forget that you could build a new life on television and pretend we never existed. Pretend she never existed. Pretend he never existed. She and he. Right from the start, Brenda alleges not one, but two people were left behind. The post continues, growing more specific. We see you on that show with your new wife on that big farm, riding your motorcycle, living the good life. But some of us remember the boy from Idaho, the boy who made promises in the back of a pickup truck under the stars, the boy who ran when things got hard. She gave you everything and you left her with nothing. He has grown up his whole life asking questions you were never man enough to answer. The implications are staggering. Brenda is clearly alleging that Chris Marek fathered a child in his youth and abandoned both the mother and the child. Think about that. A secret son or daughter, now likely a full-grown adult, living somewhere in Idaho, who has watched their biological father build a new family on national television. The post concludes with a chilling ultimatum. The silence is over, Chris. It's time to face the past. It's time to face your son. We are not going to be your dirty little secret anymore. Our insider reports indicate this post was shared hundreds of times before Brenda either deleted it or made her account private, likely after being overwhelmed by the attention. But it was too late. The screenshots had been taken and the story was out. It began circulating in fan forums, in Reddit threads, and in private messages, creating a firestorm of speculation. The initial reaction from the LPBW community has been one of utter shock. We've seen comments ranging from disbelief to others claiming they always sensed something was off about Chris. But this is no longer just about fan speculation. This is a direct public claim from someone purporting to be family. And while we must stress this is for now an unconfirmed insider report, the level of detail is what makes it so terrifyingly plausible. The mention of Idaho, the reference to a specific timeline, almost 30 years ago, the emotional weight behind the words. This doesn't read like a typical internet troll. This reads like a family secret that has finally and violently boiled over. In light of this explosive allegation, we must now do what all good investigators do, re-examine the subject. We must look at Chris Marek's entire history on the show, not through the lens of a love story, but through the lens of a man potentially harboring a life-altering secret. And when you look closely, the clues, the tells may have been there all along. Let's start with Chris's most defining characteristic before meeting Amy. He was a long-term bachelor. In his 50s, he had never been married. On the show, this was framed as him waiting for the right one. He was portrayed as a bit of a free spirit, someone who enjoyed his independence. But let's introduce a new theory. What if it wasn't about waiting for the right one? What if it was about avoiding commitment? What if a traumatic, life-altering event in his youth made him terrified of building a family because he knew he already had one that he had failed? A man who abandons his first child would carry an immense weight of guilt and fear. The fear of repeating the past, the fear of being exposed. Living as a bachelor isn't just a lifestyle choice in that context, it's a defense mechanism. It's a way to ensure no one gets close enough to ask the really hard questions, to dig into his past. Amy Roloff was the first woman to break through those walls, which leads us to the next clue. Remember the long, drawn-out journey to their engagement? For seasons, fans watched as Amy was more than ready to take the next step, while Chris seemed to hesitate. He delayed. He expressed doubts. He seemed at times overwhelmed by the idea of marriage. At the time, viewers and even Amy herself chalked it up to him being a lifelong bachelor, nervous about such a big commitment. But what if his hesitation had nothing to do with Amy and everything to do with the ghost of a family in Idaho? Imagine his internal conflict. Marrying Amy Roloff wouldn't just be a private union. It would be a public spectacle. He would be cementing his place on a national television show. His life, his name, his face would be more visible than ever. For a man hiding a secret, this would be his worst nightmare. It would dramatically increase the chances of his past catching up with him. His reluctance wasn't about fearing marriage. Our theory suggests it was about fearing exposure. Every step closer to Amy was a step closer to the secret being revealed. Now, let's dig even deeper into something no one has ever thought to question: his career. Chris Marek is a real estate agent, a successful one. It's a job that requires a lot of driving, odd hours, and frequent travel to scout properties. It provides a plausible reason to be away for a day or even a weekend without raising suspicion. Idaho is not a world away. It's a neighboring state, a long day's drive. Our sources are currently cross-referencing property, databases, and public records, but we put forth this exclusive theory. Could Chris have used his real estate career as a cover for discreet trips to Idaho? Perhaps not to see his alleged son. That might be too risky, but to connect with intermediaries, to pass along money, To keep tabs on the life he left behind from a safe distance? Think about it. I have to go check on a listing up north. I'm scouting a new development over the state line. It's the perfect explanation for unaccounted for time. It allows for movement and privacy all under the guise of work. We are not saying this is a fact, but within the context of the Brenda post, it's a possibility that is both chilling and disturbingly logical. The allegations made by Brenda center on one key location, Idaho. To understand this story, we have to go there. Our investigative team, composed of dedicated sources and researchers within the LPBW community, has begun a deep dive into Chris Marek's early life, searching for public records and digital breadcrumbs that might corroborate this story. While Chris has been very private about his life before Amy, he couldn't erase everything. Based on his age, if the timeline of almost 30 years ago is accurate, this event would have taken place in the early to mid-1990s. Chris would have been in his early 30s. This wasn't a teenage mistake. This was a decision made by a grown man. Our research has led us to a small, unincorporated community outside of Boise, a place we'll call Pine Ridge, for the privacy of those involved. Public records show a Marek family resided in this area in the 1970s and 80s. We have found a high school yearbook from Pine Ridge High School, class of 1980. In it, we find him, Christopher Marek, a smiling, confident-looking young man, voted most likely to succeed. But who was she? Who was the woman Brenda claims he abandoned? Our source in Idaho, an individual who claims to have grown up in Pine Ridge and knew the families involved, has given us a name. We will call her Sarah. According to our source, Sarah was Chris's high school sweetheart. They were the golden couple. He was the ambitious one. She was the beloved small-town girl. Everyone assumed they would get married and settle down. But Chris, our source says, always had one foot out the door. He wanted more than Pine Ridge could offer. He left for a few years, tried different things, but like many young men, he found his way back home in his late 20s. It was during this time in the early 90s that he and Sarah reconnected. The old spark was still there. Our source alleges that their rekindled romance resulted in an unplanned pregnancy. And this is where the story takes a dark turn. According to this unconfirmed report, the news of a baby was not a welcome surprise for Chris. It was a chain, tying him to the very town he was so desperate to escape for good. Sarah's family was traditional and proud. They allegedly pressured Chris to do the right thing and marry her. But Chris, faced with the reality of a life he didn't want, made a different choice. Our source claims there was a massive family-shattering argument. Promises were broken, harsh words were exchanged, and then, one day, Chris Marek was simply gone. He packed his bags and left Idaho, cutting off all contact with Sarah and her family, and in the process with his unborn child. Sarah, we are told, was left devastated and alone. She chose to have the baby, a boy. He was raised by Sarah and her parents in Pine Ridge. He grew up with a hole in his life, a father he never knew, a father who, 30 years later, would appear on his television screen, smiling and laughing, living a seemingly perfect life with a new family. Can you imagine the pain, the years of questions, the sense of betrayal? This theory, if true, recontextualizes everything we know about Chris Marek. He's not just a man who found love late in life. He's a man who has allegedly been running from his past for 3 decades. If these insider reports are even partially true, the fallout will be catastrophic, and it will extend far beyond just Chris and Amy. It threatens to destabilize the entire Roloff family, which is already in a fragile state. Let's analyze the potential impact on each key member. First, and most tragically, there is Amy. Our sources close to the family say she is completely shattered and blindsided by these rumors, whether she found out from the Facebook post itself or from Chris after the fact. We don't yet know, but the betrayal would be on a level that is hard to comprehend. Amy spent 27 years in a marriage with Matt Roloff that ended, in her own words, due to betrayal and infidelity. She wrote in her book, A Little Me, about the pain of discovering Matt's relationship with Karen Chandler. The core of her pain was the secrecy, the feeling that the life she was living was not the whole truth. Now, imagine that same feeling, multiplied by 1,000. It's not just about a hidden relationship, it's about a hidden family, a hidden child. It calls into question every single moment of her relationship with Chris. Every I love you. Every promise. Was it all real, or was she just a part of his new, carefully constructed life, designed to bury the old one? For Amy, who has built her entire second act on trust and finding a reliable partner, this would be the ultimate nightmare. It's a betrayal of the past, present, and future. And what about Matt Roloff? The dynamic between Matt and Chris has always been a fascinating subplot. It's been, for the most part, surprisingly cordial. They've worked on projects together. They've coexisted at family events. But how would Matt react to this news? Our insider theory suggests two possibilities. On one hand, Matt could be a surprising source of support for Amy. He, more than anyone, understands the complexities of the family being in the public eye. But there is another, more cynical possibility. Could Matt see this as a form of vindication? For years, he was painted as the sole villain in his and Amy's divorce. This bombshell would shift the narrative. Suddenly, Amy's new perfect husband has a secret that arguably dwarfs Matt's own. Sources close to Matt's circle claim that Matt always thought Chris was a little too smooth. Could he use this situation to his advantage, to mend fences with his children by positioning himself as the more stable patriarch? The intrigue is undeniable. The Chris-Matt dynamic is about to become the most watched relationship on the show. And then there are the kids, Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. They all had to navigate their parents' difficult divorce. They eventually came to accept Chris, to welcome him into their lives and into the lives of their own children. He is Grandpa Chris to the Roloff grandchildren. This news would force them to reconcile an impossible reality. The man they've accepted as their stepfather may have abandoned his own biological child. For Zach and Jeremy, both now fathers themselves, this would be particularly difficult to process. The idea of walking away from your own son is the antithesis of everything they represent. Would they stand by their mother? Unquestionably, but could they ever look at Chris the same way again? It would create a new, painful rift in the family. It would taint every holiday, every birthday, every family gathering. The trust, once broken, would be nearly impossible to repair. The grandchildren, who see Chris as a grandfather figure, would be at the center of a devastating family drama. So, let's tie all the threads together. What is the grand unifying theory of our exclusive report? Based on the viral post from Brenda, the unconfirmed reports from our sources in Idaho, and our deep dive analysis of Chris's behavior on the show, we can construct a plausible, terrifying narrative. The theory: in the early 1990s, a young, ambitious Christopher Marek, feeling trapped in his small Idaho hometown, fathered a child with his former high school sweetheart. Fearing that a family would derail his plans for a different life, he made the devastating choice to leave. He cut ties with his past, moved to Oregon, and built a new identity as a successful, independent bachelor. For 30 years, he maintained this secret, living with the constant low-grade fear of exposure. This fear manifested as a reluctance to commit, a hesitation to marry, and a life lived at a slight emotional distance. When he met and fell in love with Amy Roloff, his fear intensified. Marrying into the Roloff family meant marrying into the public eye, risking everything. But he took the chance, hoping his past would remain buried forever. Now, that past has come roaring back to life. His cousin Brenda, tired of the silence and seeing him live a life of seeming happiness on TV, has exposed the secret. This has triggered a chain reaction that now threatens his marriage, his relationship with his stepchildren, and his public persona. So, what happens now? This story is now bigger than just a family dispute. It's a television crisis. TLC, the network behind Little People, Big World, is now in an incredibly difficult position. Do they ignore the story and hope it goes away? That seems impossible. The fan base is in an uproar. Or do they lean into it? Do they make this explosive drama the central storyline of the next season? Imagine the scenes: Amy confronting Chris on camera, tense conversations with Matt, Zach and Tori processing the news. It would be the most dramatic, most watched season in the show's history. It would be a moral and ethical minefield, but from a ratings perspective, it would be a gold mine. And what about the alleged son, the man at the center of this story? Is he the he Brenda referred to? Will he come forward? Will he seek a relationship? Or will he demand answers for a lifetime of absence? Could we see a paternity test become a plot point on a reality show? The possibilities are as endless as they are heartbreaking. The very future of Little People, Big World hangs in the balance. It can no longer be a quaint show about a family on a farm. It has now, allegedly, become a show about a man with a secret family, and the woman who is just discovering her entire world may be a lie. The story of Chris Marek's alleged secret family is just beginning to unfold. We must reiterate that much of this is based on unconfirmed insider reports, viral posts, and exclusive theories pieced together by our team. But the puzzle pieces fit together with a chilling precision. The questions we have raised tonight are not just for entertainment. They are about truth, trust, and the hidden lives of the people we invite into our homes every week. Can Chris and Amy's marriage survive a revelation of this magnitude? Is there any explanation that could justify a secret of this depth? And who is the real Chris Marek? The devoted husband we see on TV, or the man who allegedly left a family behind in the dust of an Idaho town? We will not stop investigating. We will continue to reach out to our sources, monitor the online chatter, and search for public records that can either confirm or deny these shocking allegations. This is a developing story, and we are committed to bringing you the truth wherever it leads. And that's why your involvement is more critical than ever. We want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you believe the allegations from Brenda? Have you ever noticed any of the clues we discussed tonight? What do you think Amy should do? Leave your theories, your thoughts, and your support for the family in the comments section below. Let's get a conversation going. And one last time, if you have not already, please subscribe to LPBW Update and click the notification bell. You have our promise that we will be on top of this story, and you will be the first to know when a new development breaks. Thank you for joining us for this special investigative report. Until next time, stay tuned.